I welcome Jernej Dvoršak, co-founder and head of sales in a very interesting AI startup, PiktID, which specializes in human anonymization in photographs, along with some additional very interesting features based on AI. Jernej, welcome.
Darko, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming here. Samo da objasnimo i ljudima, možemo mi razgovarati na hrvatskom, ali čisto samo za općenito.
Zbog ove terminologije, hvala ti za mogućnost da pričamo na engleski. Ja sam mislio, i možda i za publiku relevantnije da možemo to slati u smet ovaj podcast.
Of course, it'll be much more interesting to other people also. What I wanted to ask you is, what is the current state of artificial intelligence in regards to human faces in photographs?
So, Darko, as you know, the technology has been developing at an enormous pace in the last, let's say, couple of years, or even in the last couple of months. Let's say a couple of years ago, you had this, let's say, basic opportunities and basic features to enhance resolution, colors, do the filtering, reducing blur in the photographs, or haze, or highlighting focus, and so on. And the technology has been developing further. And let's say in the context of face editing, you can, for example, nowadays add makeup, you can remove acne or wrinkles in the face. And then you have also the possibility to adjust landmarks on the face. That means you can change the position of the eyes, the gaze, maybe adjust the shape of the nose, smile. You can really play around all the facial features a lot.
People love that additional features that are available, especially on Instagram and in such services. So it's very welcome from the public.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because it's a couple of clicks more or less, right? So it's basically before you needed a lot of time and, let's say, knowledge to do things in, let's say, dedicated software. But today you can do it either on your desktop or your mobile. So it's much, much easier that way.
Yes. So it basically started with retouching of the old photos, restoring of the old photos which were damaged or missing. Then we came to the, let's say, a part of retouching that was previously done by humans, by the human retouchers. But now we also have face generation. How does this work?
Yeah, so the technology developed further. So they have let's say this play effect of creating new faces, or maybe said different versions of your face. For example, this so-called tunification, where you can, for example, create a cartoon version of yourself, where you feed, let's say, your photos into the system, and then it learns out of those photos, and then spits out, let's say, a face in the style, or let's say, in the style of cartoon you choose. You can also call this, or AI avatars, is the maybe other expression for such thing. And then you have also some other features, like you said, face generation, just creating faces from scratch. That means the technology has, let's say, data sets where it gets the photographs, and then it creates, let's say, some random version of a face that is, let's say, that doesn't exist in reality, and is still, let's say, sometimes not even to be recognized that it's a generated face. So it's very interesting how the technology has been developing further. And then you have the so-called deepfakes are, let's say, face swaps, where you have, let's say, an existing face which is taken and put, let's say, in case of deepfakes, in some, let's say, harmful context, or let's say not a cool context. And what we do is exact the opposite, but I guess we'll talk about this later as well.
Deepfakes are especially interesting for fun, for starters. Like there was some additional movies that was like played from by Tom Cruise or Morgan Freeman, and that was just for fun, but he never played in these videos or movies, and it was interesting to see. So deepfakes are fun, maybe, but starting to be a real problem when they just try to emulate real people and change the face completely, or additional body features. But where do these faces actually come from? You said you generated, you get one eye from one person, photograph or wherever, then ear from somebody else. How does this work? So I guess the algorithms, the machines, can just draw faces out of nothing.
So before we hit record, before we went live, we talked about this page, which was online, I think 2018 or 19, something like that, called "This Person Does Not Exist," where you were just like hitting refresh in the browser, and there were like new faces showing, and all of them were generated. Yeah. So the thing is, the face generation is actually just an activity of generating new faces from an existing data set. And a data set is nothing more than just a big amount of, let's say, photos, in that case, profile photos, that is fed in this data set. So the algorithm can know, okay, let's generate a face. And like you said, then it takes different features and just generates a new face out of it. This is, of course, very simplified. But the main, let's say, the main thing is the highest the quality of input photos, the highest the quality of output photos. So that means if you, for example, feed in only photos of women, let's say, then your algorithm will be specialized or will be working only, or let's say the best for generating women faces, right? So it's actually quite interesting then also to mention the bias in that context, right? Because sometimes, let's say, for some purposes, the photos are scraped off the internet, and let's say on the internet, you don't see or you don't find, let's say, photos that are, let's say, equally representing the, let's say, demographical structure equally, right? Because there are, let's say, some origins or, let's say, some ages of people, let's say, that are represented in a smaller scale, let's say. So that's why, let's say, some algorithms can work better with different groups of population.
So it basically is dependent on the size of a data set that is present to generate those faces. Additionally, how can we actually differentiate if some face is real, of a real person, or generated by AI? Is there any special secret how to find this information? Okay, this is for sure somebody real, and this is just generated a picture of a human.
So there is this webpage, whichfaceisreal.com, where you have like two options, and you have to choose which one is real and which one is not. So just recently, I just tested myself, and I was right in 8 out of 10 cases. So that means that I was like 80% correct. But this webpage, I think, is fairly old. So I would say that, let's say, with faces generated with newer technologies, is much, much harder nowadays. And I think with a couple of years or maybe even sooner, so very, very soon, it's going to be impossible to differ between generated and real face.
Okay, so you're basically an expert here. You're working with AI every day, and you still, with even older algorithms, you get 8 out of 10. How is it with the newer ones? I guess it's even less at the current moment, and in the future, probably, as you say, impossible.
I mean, of course, I do watch the details of, let's say, faces generated with our technologies, where you have to be, let's say, careful of certain regions around the face, or let's say some borders where you can maybe see that there is, let's say, some signs of a generated face. We developed the technology that smoothens out this let's say borders, but it's I think it's gonna be impossible, because the technology is getting better every day. So I think it's gonna be fairly soon. So,
are there any, let's say, signs that we should look for at the current moment, which would say immediately, okay, this is a fake generated face?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have like not just a portrait face, you just have to count the fingers, because I guess for people who are like generating faces with the tools that generate image from text, so that very often happens that people have like 12 fingers or something like that. And
free hands and similar, yeah, let's say, anomalies.
And what I've been told is because there are like photos that are fed into the data sets, are, let's say, hands are not always visible. They are either they're in pockets or somehow. So the system has not been able to learn yet, I guess. So it's an interesting, actually, a very interesting topic. I have to dive in myself, because it's interesting that when the technology is going to be so good that a person will have reliable only 10 fingers, if necessary.
Yes. Well, what I also saw in many examples is that people, even if the face is as you say, quite a large data set, they kind of more with a more probability, when the generated face is there, they have different colors of eyes, which is, I don't know how come that this comes out, but this is a quite a common problem with AI generated faces.
That's an interesting point. I mean, of course, there are people with different colors of the eyes.
Yeah, but not in such a large percentage like the AI wants us to think there is.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's an interesting point. I'll have to research that. But the thing, I haven't noticed that with our tool yet. But,
of course, I think I saw it mostly on this. Is this what is the website? Is this face real, or the website they were talking about a moment ago?
Is this face real.com?
Yeah. So there quite often you see faces with different colors of eyes. So basically, it's an older algorithm, probably.
I mean, generally, eyes are quite a challenge to generate. So I can imagine this can be true. But just maybe to mention, before you said the bigger the data set, the better. I think it's also the size is important, of course. But I guess the quality of the photos is even more important, and the nicely spreads the whole, let's say, demographics of people in the system to have really unbiased algorithm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, and I guess this data set quantity problem is not also with different cultures, ages, and everything, but also with the lighting conditions. Like we photographers tend to look for the eyes, where the light comes from. So if the data set is large, then it's probably going to also match the eyes, the lights in the eyes, the catch lights, as we call them, with the lighting on the rest of the face. So this is probably also an additional problem that maybe just we photographers try to figure out, but most of people don't even notice this. Let's just go to, let's say, your company, PiktID. And what I said from the start, you specialize in anonymizing the human faces. So how does this correlate with current topic, generating faces?
So we discussed before the deepfakes, right? And I said we do just the opposite. So we take an existing photo, an existing, let's say, face, and then we generate a new face on top. So we remove the old one and generate a new face in that person. So in that case, we protect privacy of depicted people. And that means you can still use the photos, let's say, without some legal issues, while protecting the privacy of depicted people. What we developed just recently is also the possibility to change the haircut. So now it's, let's say, you can do even a step further into pure anonymization. And what we are also planning to do in the future is the so-called full body anonymization. That means you will be able to replace the whole person in the picture. So that means just maybe persons of different heights, sizes, and so on. So it's going to be a real anonymization of people.
So at the moment, this is your core product, anonymization, right? So at the moment you anonymize faces, but if you have a body in the picture, it stays the same.
Yes, the bodies stay the same. Let's say if a woman has, let's say, a long hair, then the technology is able to adjust, let's say, the color of the sweater or let's say shirt and so on. It does change that part as well. But let's say this, so because the algorithm has this, let's say, called the segmentation mask, where it says, okay, this is the part I will change, I will remove and generate from scratch. So this is actually the thing that we work on at the moment. When we're, of course, implementing the full body anonymization is going to be, of course, bigger area of the photo. But at the moment, we are just focusing on that, anonymizing the person. And then we have on top also the option, which is, let's say, in the final stage of the development, that you're going to be able to edit. Let's say the facial features, change the origin of the person, age, skin color, expression, which is very important in marketing and so on. It's also the gaze, for example. I've been talking to marketing agencies who are, let's say, spending a lot into, let's say, designer hours just to change the direction of the eyes, of the gaze, right? So sometimes it's better that the model looks into the camera, sometimes it's better that it looks like, let's say, far away. So that's actually quite easy to edit with our technology. So it's, let's say, quite an interesting tool to have.
Yes, very interesting. So you are basically refining your product just further, also from the gaze, but also to the whole body, which I guess is there is now a need for even greater data set, which includes the full body, so you can change it. And in the last, let's say, a month or so, we had some legal issues with this data set. the origins of photographs, the stock agencies who have very big database of photographs started suing the companies that were working with the AI, so that they don't use their photos, or at least to pay them for that use. How do you have this issue resolved?
So first of all, we are using the data copyright free data set for our, let's say, algorithm. But like you said, there has been some legal disputes between some big players in the industry, and we'll see how this resolves. But there are also, like you mentioned, some stock photo providers that sell their data sets and then compensate the authors of the media that is in the data set with let's say some kind of contributions. So I guess also this area is going to find its let's say ground very fast. There are for sure providers that are just scraping the internet, just all the photos from the internet. But I guess some serious providers are surely making sure that the data sets are, let's say, compliant and legal to use. So I think with a little bit of regulation, these things are going to find, let's say, their right legal framework very fast. So I'm not worried about that. So let's see how that legal dispute turns out.
Yeah, of course, this will really need to be regulated fast, because at the speed the technology is evolving, it just stops when such legal issues arise, and this needs to be really regulated. But from what I understood, you don't have a problem with this. So your data set is from the different source.
Yeah, and since we are, I guess that your audience is more or less photographers, right?
And we photographers are always concerned with copyrights and everything. So yes, this is a hot issue in the photography industry at the time.
Exactly. I mean, not just the copyrights, but also, people ask, like, are photographers now out of work since you can just generate your own photos out of text? I mean, also when the photo cameras got invented, people thought that the painters are going to be out of job. But actually, what just happened that, the photographers are using their own imagination and creativity using the photo camera. And I think it's going to be same now, that users of the AI are going to use their own creativity and, let's say, bring some creative inputs into their, let's say, projects. That I think that the photographers will not be out of work, I guess, in the future because of the AI. But I just think it's gonna change. Let's say that the whole industry works. But I'm not afraid for your projects, Blavko.
No, of course. I think most of the photographers are also aware that this is not such a big issue, and we are not going to get out of. We're not going to have a lack of work because of AI. Because, as you said, painters didn't stop painting. If anything else, their painting started to get more on the value because it's a different technique than photography. But also, photographs will be a different technique than AI-generated photos or images, however we should call them. So I don't think it's that of a big issue, but it was quite different. I'd say it looked quite different a few months ago, where you could basically just generate photograph out of nothing, and there were such fears that photographers are going to be out of work. Okay, let's just get back to your company. PiktID, anonymization of faces. Yes, I noticed you just zoomed out where I started talking about the full body. So this is a great feature. AI done that, right?
Marco, I don't know why did you not tell me that I zoomed out, because I had I did not see it.
When we started to talk about the full body anonymization, then you just zoomed out. So I guess you still have on your computer this AI algorithm that recognizes also the text. This is what I assume it was. Never mind. Okay. Yeah. Who are your customers? Who does need to anonymize the faces?
Yeah, so before we talk about pure anonymization, it's like mother that would like to put, let's say, a photo of the family without, let's say, the children, or let's say with anonymized children on social media, for example, or let's say some schools that would like to protect the privacy of particular children, maybe of children without the GDPR consent from their parents. Then you have, let's say, a graphic designer that has a great photo for his project, but the model somehow does not fit the message of the campaign. Then you have, let's say, marketing agencies who do, let's say, a global campaign, and they would like to use photos from only one photo shooting, also, let's say, for the Asian market or for the Latin America, and where you can just, let's say, change the models that look authentic and, let's say, local, and to have, let's say, more of this authenticity for the consumers. And then you have, for example, also photographers who can multiply their content. Let's say they have photo shootings and they do the model. Maybe street photographers that have, let's say, great photos from the street, but no model really signed by the pictured people. So what they can do is just anonymize the people and just easily use those photos for commercial purposes as well. And then you have, for example, companies that have some, let's say, team photos, and some ex-colleagues, that's like former colleague says, well, please remove me from the team photo. And then what you're going to do, are you going to blur the people there? It's going to for sure look strange. Are you going to take a new photo of, let's say, a team of 100 people? That's very expensive to make a break for 15 minutes together outside of the company. So it's, let's say there are several users of our tool, but still, we don't see which group is the more predominant, but we are just focusing on this anonymization part with the option of the editing, of further editing of the anonymized faces, and then we'll see which direction is grabbing us more strongest.
Okay, yeah. So from what I understand, from mother to the big company, there are different groups which can use your service, so it's quite scalable, I guess. That you don't need to be rely on some big agreement to start using your software.
No,
how we should use it? How should we call it? Service software.
It's actually a web app, so you don't. It's not a mobile application. It's not. It's not a software let's say you have to install on your computer. It's just you go into the browser PiktID.com, and you just upload your face. The technology detects all the faces in the photography, and you just have to choose which one you would like to anonymize. And then it's just easy as that. You just click on the person. The system suggests you a new face, a new anonymized face. And then if you like it, you just confirm it, download the photo, that's it. If you would, let's say, like a different face, you can generate more, click through, find the suitable version, and then go for it. And that's actually it. So really a couple of clicks.
Okay. So basically it can do anonymization without much problem directly in the web browser. Oh, that is then great. You can play around it without no problem from the start. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can start playing with it. And let's just go over some of these use cases if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, mother has a picture with her and her child and probably wants to put it in some social network. This is something that is a problem if you don't want to show your child's face, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want, I mean, you can, what people are doing, let's say nowadays, especially with children, they just put some kind of an emoji over the face. That's fine as well. But okay, maybe in that case, it's maybe even, let's say, sweet. But let's say some other cases where maybe not children, or let's say some other vulnerable groups, you can just, instead of blurring, like I mentioned, because then so many questions arise, you just anonymize and still, let's say, keep the overall storyline of the photo. Because what our technology can do is remain the expression, let's say age, gender, and so on of the person. So actually nobody can know that this is not actually the person in the photo. So it's, let's say the next generation of anonymization. And maybe a very important thing is that the output is high quality. So it's actually good for commercial purposes, for let's say bigger resolutions as well.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's not a problem if a person doesn't want her child being recognized anywhere, just to put in every picture an anonymized face, and this face can be used throughout on different photographs, I guess. Then the same anonymized face is everywhere present, the same face.
This is something one can implement as well. In our case, we're working with one photo because the face is generated, let's say, from scratch every time. Because if you have different faces, you have maybe different rotations, and then the parameters change. So it's let's say it's a quite a challenging thing, I guess. But it's more or less for one photo.
Yeah, I understand. But the main point is the child won't be recognized. Also, like what you say, in some company, there is quite a rotation of the workforce. You don't need to create a photo shoot for every time when somebody leaves. You just add the face, or maybe could you even add new face to the old body, like the new employee, just to be put there.
Yeah, like you said, Darko, before before we hit live, you worked in an IT company before, right? So maybe you can put some more female workers into the company, so it looks like more 50-50, so it's more attractive for maybe some male developers to join the company. So it's you can play around a lot with that, so it's quite exciting what you can do.
Or somebody has bad hair there and just okay, make me a bit prettier, like make me maybe like Brad Pitt, but better looking with beard, of course. So this is also a possibility then.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something.
No, I was just like you said, like a barehead day and so on. Of course, you can play around with the technology a lot. I mean, just taking a photo of yourself and then maybe just see how let's say your haircut fits your body, let's say, and so on. So it's quite funny thing to do. And this is actually what the AI, let's say, at least now when it's in these beta versions of. And I'm not just taking, let's say, generating faces as an example, but AI in general, because it's so new and it's so, let's say, it's so unknown. People are playing around a lot. I mean, if I check my, let's say, LinkedIn, I have, let's say, quite a lot of AI community now as my connections, and it's amazing how people are achieving new results, and it's really fascinating where and how fast this thing is going.
Yeah. So it has no limit, just the imagination, all in all. And what you mentioned, what was interesting to me, when we photographers tend to work with faces, let's say in fashion industry and advertising, and sometimes you either do not have model release of the person either to use globally or maybe during some additional time, or maybe you do not have the model release for some specific use. And this is then possible to change the face and still have the photograph and and not to organize the whole photo shoot from the start again.
Yeah. You have to just anonymize the person, make sure that it's not, let's say, recognizable anymore. And then you can use exactly like also for other geographic regions where maybe the model release is not covered or does not cover it. So it's quite exciting how, let's say, the possibilities expand with that. Yeah.
Yes. So also, I guess it matches also the color of the face, the fine nuance of the tone of the skin and everything. So it doesn't look like it's just sticked on there with a new face.
I mean, it's of course depends on how much in detail you want to go. Of course, if we talk about, let's say, commercial use of the photo for, let's say, some billboard and so on, of course, you have to make sure that all the details suit that, let's say, the skin of the hands suit more or less the face as well. So I guess that, of course, some, let's say, graphic design and retouching work is necessary if you really need the highest quality. But the most important thing is that the face itself is the highest quality possible. So you can use it for big purposes. Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, with the smaller differences, it's just normal. Our skin doesn't look the same color on the hands and on the face. So it's usually done also in retouching with real people. So I guess it's not that of a big problem. But this interesting use that you mentioned is for different regions where you need cultural differences in the face. So this is also possible, let's say, European ad, but with the Asian face for the Asian market.
Yeah, it's that's really if you see let's say a commercial or some ad, this is a fact. You trust more people that, let's say, look like people from your community, let's say, or from your country or whatever. So that's a fact that this works better in marketing and advertising. So definitely it makes sense to go with, let's say, suitable models, especially if you're, let's say, spending a lot of money for your campaigns. And what is also to add here in this, let's say, advertising context is the so-called A/B testing, where you have, let's say, to choose the best performing photo for your, let's say, campaign, right? And you can choose, let's say, between two persons, or you can choose between two expressions of the same person. And then you can just test with a really small budget. Okay, this one is better. Okay. And then really find the best performing one, and go for it then on a big scale. So you somehow really need quite a little energy to find really good, suitable photo for your campaign that really fits your message of your, let's say, product or the storyline of the campaign.
Yes, this A/B testing is especially interesting, and it is a great feature of your software, if I understand correctly, that you can also change the expression on the present face photograph.
So how this works is, so first the face is anonymized. You create a new version, and then you can work on that. And here you can work with smile and all kind of expressions actually. And then just find the suitable one. You have to play a bit to get the feeling how technology works. What is, let's say, what faces work better with let's say different expressions to really find the best one. But it's really interesting how you can really nail it with the right expression. Because, for example, I was talking with one marketing agency, and they were doing some campaign for some tourism destination, and they said we had a great photo of an e-biker standing next to his bike, and with a beautiful landscape, beautiful weather outside, and so on. But the guy did not look happy. I mean, we need somebody that is really happy when he's at our place, right? So they were like really excited to hear about our tool for the future. So this is, let's say, one it's interesting. When you really have a good photo, you want to use, but the model just does not fit. And this is where our tool, because at the beginning we were talking about generated faces, and you can also generate, let's say, stock photos out of scratch in some kind of context or studio whatsoever. But this is, let's say, generated, right? And we're talking about existing, let's say, your own material or your stock material, whatever. So exciting.
Yeah. And I can especially relate to this example. You have a perfect photo, you have perfect scenery, once in a lifetime photo, but maybe the expression isn't there and it ruins the whole photo. So this problem is solved now this way. This is just awesome. We come to the, let's say, huge problem today, at least with us photographers, but anybody who is pushing content out to the public, and this is GDPR. We just can't go around shoot people. I mean, we can, but we cannot do anything with these photos. So street photographers especially have quite a problem, because until few years ago, it was a problem. If you were in a public space, you photograph somebody, she is in a public space, and it's normal that this is not a problem to publish this photo. But GDPR states that privacy must be preserved, so also the photos from the public spaces are involved here, and you cannot just publish photos that have some real faces unless you have some model release from them.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I can imagine with street photography. I mean, you ask somebody, "Hey, can I just take a photo of you? You have such an interesting face. Yeah, go ahead. Why not?" And then you stick out some kind of contract, and can you just sign this, please? And
you need to go around with contract and with pen, so or maybe electronic contract, but still, I mean, it's insane for this.
I mean, it's hard to imagine how many people will sign the model release at that moment. Okay, what's this mean? I can commercial purposes. What does it mean? So you can use my photo like for the ants around the city? Not sure. So this is actually a really,
and even if there was a happy person, you lose the expression, you lose the mood there from the start, that there was that you were interested in for the other person, but maybe even not so much if you're going to photograph a specific person, but you photograph a street and you can recognize at least 10, 20 people on the street, crossing the street or something like this, and you cannot possibly go to each one of them and have them sign the contract.
Yeah, okay, you mentioned you lose the smile, quite fair. Yeah, you have to offer the model release after the photo shoot, I guess. But it's really a big thing, I guess. The model release is like, for example, you have the so-called free stock photos, right? Where you can just download the photo and use it for, let's say, also commercial purposes, right? But the stock photo providers don't legally guarantee you the model release was signed, right? For example, in case of premium stock photos, you are, let's say, some so to say, legally safe, and you have some kind of they back you in case of disputes and so on. But in case of free stock photos, imagine you have like a huge campaign and the model did not sign anything, and they just approached the advertiser, the company, the client, so to say, and they just want, let's say, some compensation for it. And then the company goes to the agency, hey, what did you not take care of it, and so on. So with that tool, you can so easily, let's say, get rid of this legal worries, right? So it removes a lot of stress, I guess, and it's so interesting. And also, maybe just another thing to add here. Sometimes, do you see, let's say, that two companies or two advertisers are using the same face taken out from the stock photos? I mean, this is really a problem, especially if, let's say, in one city or one market, to see the same face for two different purposes. Let's say for a car and, let's say, I don't know, sunglasses or something like that. So in that case, with our tool, you can create unique faces that, let's say, really reflect your brand. So that's quite an interesting stuff. You don't need to search for the models and pay the modeling agencies to find exactly, let's say, I don't know, 30-year-old blonde guy who is happy with his life and ready for the new challenges ahead of him, because you can just play with the tool a little bit and just find your model fairly fast.
And additionally, have A/B testing of the really the expression that works. Great. And now that you mentioned it, I remember, I think somewhere in the 90s, there was a photo shoot with a college girl, and later they called her Everywhere Girl, because photos from this photo shoot were on couple of thousand advertisers. She was advertising with her face, everything from, from ice cream to the cars, everything that is possible. And she was so present, on the web, because so they started calling her Everywhere Girl. And this is quite a problem then. But it also happens today with some models that are maybe on a smaller market. So you start to see them on maybe even competitors, which is quite a problem then.
Yeah, it's a big problem. You can always take an option, especially with the premium stock photo providers, to get the exclusive rights on let's say such photos, but this is of course very expensive.
Yes, on the photos, but also on the face, not on the person, right? Person can have a different photo shoot, and you see the same face again for a different company.
You are very right, because I guess the model does not need to tell the photographer that he or she is having another photo shoot the next day, and that his photos are going to appear on the internet as well. So you are very right. Yeah.
Yeah. So PiktID with its services solves quite a lot of problems. So from what I see, is there anything else that we forgot to mention?
So we are, we are based in Klagenfurt. We are a very international team of co-founders from Italy, Slovenia, and Austria. So let's say we speak quite a lot of languages. So feel free to get in touch with us. And yeah, we are very much looking ahead how this whole market is going to develop, since we know that this, let's say, privacy is gaining on importance, right? It's like GDPR is, sometimes people think, okay, GDPR is excuse for everything. When you say no, oh, GDPR, right? But since we're solving this problem, we're guessing that the story can get quite big, especially if you can solve these problems. And yeah, we're very much looking ahead.
Thank you, Jernej, for this introduction of PiktID and AI technologies that can be used in photographs.
It was my pleasure. I thank you for invitation. I'm looking forward to maybe your community to reach out to us to test our tool on our webpage, or just find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. And we're happy to connect. And Danko, thank you again for your invitation. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. All the links will be in the show notes, so anybody who's interested can contact you and also start playing with anonymizing faces in the photographs. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.